Sophie hadn't realized she was holding her breath until she let it out in relief and sank back into the corner of the rail car. She'd been able to back into the vestibule unnoticed while everyone else in the car gathered toward the front to peer out the windows and speculate about what was going on. But when she turned toward the outside door, she nearly collapsed in fright. One of the lawmen had come to the back of the train and was standing on the small platform. All right, everyone, 3 guesses as to what one word in that little excerpt, in that paragraph, sent me into the fact-checking abyss and author rabbit holes. If you said vestibule, you would be correct. And that is today's trivial tidbit. So stay tuned, we're going to learn all about the vestibuled train car and why this was important in my book. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Emily Harris, author of STEAMY historical romances. And in these trivial tidbit videos, I try to share with you the small, silly, remarkably mundane things which wind up causing me consternation in my writing process. Today's topic of discussion is the vestibuled train. This tidbit cropped up in my very first book, Her Queen City Ranger. As you may have noted from my introductory excerpt, one of my characters was traveling by train, more accurately was on the run from the law on a train, when the train she's on gets stopped by Colorado Rangers out on the Eastern Plains. She's got to beat a hasty retreat in that case, and I wanted to put her in a space away from the observation of other passengers as well as the Rangers. The obvious spot, of course, would be the vestibule, right? Well, I initially thought so, but then I remembered every Wild West movie I'd ever watched in which the train, because there's always a train, very obviously does not have vestibules, which creates added drama in the inevitable chase scene, because obviously the train gets held up by robbers and the good guys have to go chasing after the bad guys through multiple cars and jumping over the gaps between. So I immediately wondered if I'd just painted myself into a corner. As luck would have it, history was on my side. The first true vestibule train was introduced by the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1887, and my book takes place in 1893. But Emily, would the passenger trains headed west all have been converted by that time? And let's not get nitpicky. My concern was, did it exist? And yes, it did. Okay, so why is this important for us amateur historians? Because, as mentioned earlier, the lack of a vestibule made moving between the cars as the train traveled both dangerous and highly inconvenient. If a passenger or rail worker wished to do so, they would not only have to deal with weather, if it happened to be raining or snowing, but also with cinders and ash from the engine exhaust up at the front of the train. Add to that having to traverse directly over the rails between shifting cars and no stable handrails. Not the best mix. Passenger travel at the time consisted of you, a seat, and that was it. Train travel as we know it today, with dining cars, sleepers, observation cars, and outright luxury in some cases, were not feasible before the introduction of the vestibule, and completely changed the outlook for passenger trains. That, my friends, has been today's trivial tidbit. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to keep up to date on what sort of far-fetched themes us historical fiction writers have to look up. And in case you were wondering, my character did successfully evade the law and stole a ranger's horse in the process. Until next time, happy reading.